So something huge, and I mean huge, happened in the Johnny Depp versus the Sun libel trial, and not a lot of people seem to pick up on this fact. See, there'd always been accusations that AH had defrauded the Department of Homeland Security, lying to them in 2014. Well, it turns out that we not only got accusations, but we got proof of that matter too. That's right, undeniable proof. No wonder her team is afraid of, quote-unquote, satellite litigation. Going to be some interesting stuff to talk about here. So hey there, now before we get started, let me sincerely thank everyone that made our second comic campaign a smashing success. You'll notice it's in demand now, meaning we're working on it. You can still pick it up. Link is in the description. It's amazing. The mainstream, they wanted to say, because we cover things like this, we're the bad guys, but hey, doesn't matter what they say. It matters what you say. So again, sincerely, thank you. Now this piece of bombshell testimony, and it is definitely bombshell, I'll lay out why that is. It comes to us from Kate James, who was AH's former assistant from 2012 to 2015. Now this stuff, it was something that AH's legal team was terrified of too. You can see it in the legal documents that they present to the judge. You have this addressed here. The issue concerning AH's letter to the Department of Homeland Security and the alleged smuggling of dogs into Australia were contentious, and if Miss James was able to give evidence in relation to them, would lead to satellite litigation, aka the Department of Homeland Security may just react, and you know what? They probably will. Now the judge in this, he says, hey, it doesn't matter, basically. Paragraphs 25 and 26. AH's letter to the Department of Homeland Security regarding Savannah McMillan and the exhibits here, I agree with Mr. Sherborne, that is Johnny Depp's lawyer, that this incident is potentially relevant to AH's credibility because it concerned her credibility. It was not a matter which had to be pleaded. The issue of potential relevance is whether AH said something to the department which she knew was untrue. I agree with Mr. Sherborne that this is relatively self-contained, and the risk of satellite litigation does not persuade me that it should be excluded. So, I don't really care that she could be sued for this. Interesting. Now, the claim here, it goes as follows. Letter to the Department of Homeland Security, September 2014. AH asked me to send a letter she had drafted to the Homeland Security in September 2014. She had hired a girl called Savannah McMillan to work as her said assistant. Savannah, a British citizen, had been held in immigration and questioned about the frequency that she had been coming and going from the USA. AH's letter falsely claimed that Savannah was just a friend, not an employee, so it was correct that she only had a tourist visa. In AH's letter, she called it fraudulent that it was being alleged that Savannah was working for AH unlawfully. She said that as Savannah's quote-unquote friend, she could, quote, say truthfully and unequivocally that this allegation is entirely false. I would like to go on the record saying that Savannah McMillan is a personal friend, and to my knowledge has never worked unlawfully or otherwise in the United States, or for me. You notice that statement there. She has not worked for me. I knew this to be untrue, and that AH was therefore willfully lying to U.S. Immigration Department. I took a photograph of the letter and one of the paychecks from AH to Savannah, and basically she encloses it here. So what's fascinating about this is that AH's lawyers, they try to dismiss Kate James as another disgruntled employee. And yes, she is definitely a disgruntled employee. But one of the things that she provides along with this statement is proof of what she's saying. I mean, here, you can see a paycheck. I'm not going to redact anything on this because this is part of the actual record, but you can see who wrote this out. You have Amber Van Ree at the time. You can see who this is made out to, Savannah McMillan. You have your time pledge. You have $1,625, and you can see the signature on that. Oh yeah, definitely AH's work. What's interesting too is that we get a copy of the letter that she sent in as well. Again, she's telling Homeland Security there is nothing wrong. This is just my friend. Never, ever worked for me while paying her to work for her. Again, satellite litigation. No wonder these people were worried about that. Now, along with this, Kate James also makes other accusations, ones that again are listed as potentially causing satellite litigation, and she backs one of these claims up too. This is about the dog smuggling to Australia. She notes, "I was aware that shortly after AH fired me, she got in trouble for unlawfully smuggling her dogs into Australia. We had previously used a dog transportation company who were hired to sort out the necessary paperwork and to guide us through the process of preparing the dogs. This has worked well until 2014 when AH took the dogs to England. When it became clear that AH was intending to go to Australia, we were advised that it's a 6-month process to prepare the dogs' immigration and begin the process. Ultimately, as the departure time approached, we became aware that there would be a discrepancy of around 10 days for the dogs to travel by private jet to Australia, the only other option being that they would have to travel in the hold on a commercial flight on the correct date." Oh my God, not a commercial flight for your dogs, right? So I would attempt to talk to AH about the date discrepancy frequently while we were trying to sort out the logistics, but her eyes would glaze over, she would walk away. I discussed this with Kevin Murphy about the concerns about the deadline, and Kevin in turn also emailed AH to explain there would be a problem if they traveled before the correct departure date and that would be illegal. AH chose to ignore both of us. She deliberately smuggled the dogs into Australia, as in several circumstances which I observed, it was as if she felt that she was above the law. It is my understanding that someone then took them to a local grooming parlor in Australia, started bragging that they were Johnny Depp's dogs. The owner posted about it on Facebook, and AH got found out. I remember the huge uproar at the time. I was told that Johnny had to send the dogs back to LA on a private jet, which would have cost a fortune from Australia. Ultimately, I woke up one morning many months later to find an email from my mother with an attachment of a newsletter article from my hometown of Brisbane. I was devastated when I found out that AH had blamed me in court. I broke down in tears at the thought that she had blatantly lied in a court in my hometown and blamed me. Obviously, I knew that this was a complete lie, and yet she had no problem in apparently perjuring herself in order to avoid responsibility. Now, this next part, there's actually proof of this. It's circulated around the media, but I had been told about a discussion that took place where AH contemplated asking Kevin to ask me to sign a false statement to support her position that she did not know that the dogs were ready to be taken into Australia. AH knew they weren't ready, yet chose to take them anyhow. The fact that she was willing to ask me to sign such a statement under oath, especially as an Australian who cares and understands about the laws of my own country, is a reflection of her approach to me and anyone, in fact, in general. She did not care about throwing anyone under the bus if it meant saving her own skin, even if it meant lying in court and to authorities. I believe it would have been obvious to AH that I would not lie for her, and she decided not to approach me. Now this here, I recall a previous occasion in September 2013 when I was asked to speak to Kevin Murphy about amending the dogs' medical records so they could travel together on the 25th of September 2013. AH asked me if I knew a vet she could quote-unquote grease. Interesting, and she supplies proof of this. You can see the letter on this subject. It has both dogs here. You can see the date when this was written. You can see the from party, AH to Kate James. Can you maybe help Kevin procure a slightly altered health document that has their shots recorded as 2 days before so they can all leave together on the 25th? Do we have a vet we could grease? Connection. So you see that she is more than willing to go in to change up legal documents. She's more than willing to lie to a court about something. That makes up, well, an interesting thing when it comes to going before another court. Now, there was another statement that Kate James made too, about AH taking things. And I wonder if AH pushes this, would Kate James actually showcase proof that this transpired. So she notes in a second witness statement, we've never seen this before, this trial, when I was 26 years old and traveling in Brazil, I was violently, I'm going to change that word to arped because this platform doesn't like it, by an unknown male at machete point, having been woken by a perpetrator while sleeping alone in my dwelling. This ordeal went on for 5 to 6 hours, and I narrowly escaped with my life. This torturous experience of such extreme, we're going to say violence there, has haunted me ever since and permanently changed the trajectory of my life to this day. Over the years, I've shared this incident with many close friends, family, and therapists. See, you could prove that she actually had said this before to someone else because there could be a therapist record out there. So in 2013, AH became aware of what had happened to me as I talked about it with a friend of hers at her apartment. AH then summoned me to her office as we sat on her couch, and she questioned me about it. She was curious as to how I had coped with it on a daily basis, and she suggested I buy a gun. I was shocked at the suggestion, as I would not consider having a gun in my house with a small child around. I responded that I chose to see myself as an ARP survivor, not an ARP victim, and that is how I found my own way to cope. So in June 25th, 2020, I received documents pertaining to my own involvement on behalf of the claimant in this case. As I perused the documents, much to my utter shock and dismay, I discovered that AH had in fact stolen my, we're going to say, violence conversation with her and twisted it into her own story to benefit herself. This, of course, caused me extreme distress and outrage that she would dare to attempt to use my most harrowing experience of my life as her own narrative. Now I wonder, like I said, if she's countered on this. Could she actually provide evidence like she has for so many other claims, showcasing that AH did indeed do this? Because we already have something that could trigger satellite litigation in Homeland Security. We have something else that could trigger the same thing when it comes to the Australian incident. And if she could provide proof of this if challenged, can you imagine what that would do? But anyway, you tell me what you think about this, and yeah, isn't that something? Isn't that something indeed? So to close, I want to thank everyone that made our second comic, Another Case for the Littlest Umbrella, such a smash hit. It's in demand right now. That means we're working on it. We're finalizing everything. You can pick it up while it's that way. And again, thank you so much for checking that out. I mean, we encounter the mainstream comic press. They wouldn't talk about it despite its earnings. They wouldn't talk about the other one either because, we're all terrible wrong thinkers for talking about stuff like this, but that's okay. Again, we create good products. We don't need them. We need you to see them. And if you like that, check it out, back it, and thank you so much. Also, let me say this. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for participating. You make these endeavors possible. Without you, none of this stuff works. So thank you. Appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And until next time, see you soon.